So, all right, guys, let's continue with the next part. So we are into the training of AWS, and you guys know there's two training go and parallel. There's some topic that is very common in both the program. I'm talking about AWS CSA, that is more about the admin, or I can say the architecture part of the AWS. And plus, at the same time, we're also doing the developer track. Initial topics are common, but slowly we will the remaining topic of the developer we will take the extra classes, or I can say after the CSA been completed, then we will move to the developer track, right? So, but you know, if you go to AWS, right, one of the main, or I can say one of the core topic that is on which the entire concepts of the cloud has built on. Okay. And you guys know that is called, initial class, if you remember, I have talked about multi-tenancy, right? So you guys know what is tenant. Okay. So any user or any client of the cloud is known as tenant. And you guys know what is multi-tenant, because in the initial classes I have explained you with some example what is the use of multi-tenant. Multi-tenant is one of the great feature of the cloud computing. Okay. But if you want to achieve the multi-tenant, you need some kind of isolation, right? And again, what is isolation, I have explained in my initial classes. But if you want to achieve the isolation, and if you especially talk about the AWS cloud, so in the AWS cloud, the isolation is actually or internally provided via one service, a very common service, very useful service. Or I can say without having this service, mostly none of the service in the AWS will work for us. Wherever you go in any of the services, maybe go to EFS, maybe go for EC2, or maybe go for some other services in the future, right? Everywhere you will see, or maybe you might not see, but it will be there in behind the scene working for you. Okay. So if you want to achieve multi-tenant, that will provide you isolation, that is a good thing in the terms of management or in the terms of security. So in the AWS, we have one service that provide these features and lots of other features also, that is known as VPC. That's called virtual private, because private is, you can think something like a isolation, because isolation provide you a private, and we are providing this isolation on the top of a cloud. So this called virtual private cloud. Okay. So very interesting topic. This topic is purely based on networking, or you can say this is the one of the service on the AWS cloud provide you NAS service. That's called networking as a service. And you guys know in the cloud we always say as a service. So for example, if you go to EBS, they give you a block storage as a service. You go to EC2, they give you compute as a service. If you go to EFS, that was my last class topic, that give you file storage as a service. Similarly, VPC is a service who give you at the core level network as a service. So if you want, AWS give you network service. And when we talk, guys, about network, lots of things come up. Okay, so when I talk about network, then there's some device called switch come up. There's one device called a router come up. There's some program or device called firewall come up, VPN come up, and lots of other things also, netting, SNET, DNET, and tons of other concepts also come up. Okay, so almost all the networking related concepts, if you, or not concept, if you really want to establish a network setup on the top of the cloud, then you need a service that will give you a network as a service. And the name of the service is called VPC. So it's a big topic, guys, long topic, but without having a good understanding about the VPC, I don't think so we can do much on the top of the cloud. Okay, so I'm taking this topic from very basics. Most probably by today or by tomorrow, and almost all the concept of VPC you will you guys will guys go through about these topics. Okay. And even though, guys, believe me, till now we had used VPC a lot, but that is a pre-created VPC. And mostly in the AWS CSA or developer training or any of the training, there's some kind of way available in the AWS that automatic create a VPC for you. That's good thing, or they create automatically a VPC for you. But guys, in sometime if you create something automate and there's pre-given automate things for to us, so we can't do much there. So this concept called wizards in the VPC will discuss. They one click they automatically create everything for you. But if you have some kind of customized requirement, and you want to do your own network setup the way you want, completely customized, so you have to go inside and deep dive to understand all the concept how these guys work, and then you should know how to customize everything from the sketch and create your own VPC. So in this trend, guys, we will focus. And I've seen always a great feedback about this topic whenever I deliver this training. um, so because we are going in depth, and everything we are customized from the scratch, so that any kind of environment or setup we need to do, we can do it, because we know, or we will know the entire internal concepts, right? So that might be reason it might take a lot of time. Maybe one more extra class we might need, but I just want to go slowly because a lot of guys might not be comfortable with the concept called netting or S netting or VPN or IPsec or other concepts also, right? So I'll go a little bit slow. But for this class, there's a very small prerequisite. You guys know a little bit about networking. At least you should know basic use of switch and router. You should know what is IP and net mask. And those guys who don't know about those concepts of basic networking, so I have already shared you one of my video long ago, or maybe day before yesterday also, we have shared with you. Then we have only talked about very basics concept of IP router switches. So I believe that is the only basics prerequisite for this topic, right? So let me start this topic. So I think you understood the topic for today's class, or obviously tomorrow class, would be VPC. And by chance, if you go to AWS cloud and if you go to services, in the service there's one section over here called networking. In this section, guys, we have already discussed about cloud front. Lots of discussion we have done in the cloud front, but there's one more service here called VPC that is related to networking. So we are going to discuss about VPC today. Okay. So let me start from in this way. But before, guys, we will start the VPC. I just want to give you a quick summary about the networking, because without having this information, it will be very harder to understand the internal and the core concept of the VPC. Okay, so I just required 5 or 10 minutes to very quickly explain you some of the basics concept that we require. Otherwise, in the future, when I go for netting or some other concept, you will stuck there. Okay. So you can think in this way. Uh, uh, if you, let's say you have two different computers, or the VM, or I can say here in the cloud AWS, sorry, EC2 instances, right? Let's say your requirement is this is one of the computer A or maybe one of the laptop B, and your requirement is you want to transfer the data from here and there, or maybe you want to do SSS, or maybe you want to ping, right? So whatever your requirement is, okay, you need a network. Okay. So so if you want A will transfer some data to B. Okay, so there is some kind of prerequisite you need. Okay, so I have 5 or 6 7 steps, right? If you don't have any of these steps, okay, or any of the things implemented, it is impossible to connect system A to system B. So first requirement is between A and between B, you should have one network. When I say network, you should have physical network. Or when I say physical network, so between A and between B, you should have some kind of physical wire or wireless connectivity. Okay, it but of this, but I know everybody know this, but why I'm discussing this, because in some of my setup we will say this might require. So first requirement, if you want A can connect to B or they can ping to B, you should have physical network setup. Second requirement is but always A and B both should have some IP address, and mostly because we normally work on IPv version 4. Maybe you can work for IP version 6, but they should have some IP address. This is the second requirement. And third requirement is okay, both the IP, okay, of A and B, if they belong to same network, then between this IP, between A and B computer, you should have a switch connectivity. But if the both the IP is the same network, you require switch as a device. But if both the IP belongs to different network, then you require a router as a device. Okay. And what I mean by same network, different network, I think in my basic networking classes, I have discussed about what I mean by same network IP and different network IP. Okay. So if IP A and IP B belong to same network, we can do a connectivity, but we require a switch as a device. But the same time is this system, and this system has a different IP. I mean, IP means IP belong to different network, even though you have a connectivity, but if you put the switch, it won't work. You require a router over here. Okay, so there's one more requirement we have. Now we have some more requirement. Okay, the requirement is I will discuss in this requirement in the future classes. But if IPA has IP address, but this IP address, if this IP address is a private IP, and IPB also have IP that is also private IP. Okay, if both the guys has a private IP, then you will have a connectivity. But if you have this kind of scenario, IPA is a private IP and IPB is a public IP, then if this is kind of scenario, if somebody has a public private IP and somebody has a public IP, and if you try to connect these two guys, okay, directly with some kind of device like a router, or maybe try to do with switch, it won't work. Okay, so so what I mean by this, these steps we will discuss in a minute as we start implementing. But but if your requirement is, because in the networking the basic requirement is I want A will connect to IPB, or one computer will connect to computer 2, right? So it is not like this just put the laptops and start working, right? You have to consider these steps. Physical network, you should have the IP address, you should have a you should have a the same network or different network or router switches. Or one more thing you might require, it is but obvious. Let me put the step 3. Both the computers should have a network card. And why so again important? Because we have to attach the network card in the AWS cloud. We will discuss in a minute. So both the computers should have some network card. Okay, and typically this network card is also known as LAN card, or I can say it's called Ethernet card. So both the systems should have some kind of network or Ethernet card or NIC card. Okay, so this third step, then fourth step, fifth step, or maybe we might have some more steps. So we'll discuss, guys, by the end of the tomorrow class. At least this is the one of the very important part to be discussed. We'll discuss maybe today or tomorrow in detail. Okay, but there will be a lot of scenario come up where one IP or one computer has a private IP, one IP or one computer has a public IP, and they won't connect. But they should connect, right? Then we have to understand one concept called netting. So net is the one who help us, or maybe we might use, or maybe you have one computer private, one is private, but between the private we have public setup. So private, then public, then private. Okay, so again, how we can connect? Then we might use netting or maybe VPN we might use. So don't worry, guys, if you don't understand this steps what I'm writing here, but in some half an hour, you almost all the steps you will understood very easily. Okay, but but the important point is, if you see here, I'm talking purely on the networking perspective. Okay, and if you want to do something on networking on the cloud, is called NAS, and for the NAS, this is the service gonna help you. Okay, so let me start by building. Let me create some diagram, and this diagram will explain you all those concepts. Then we'll move to the practical part. Okay, so guys, if you really want to understand the networking as a service, or you want to understand if you want to understand how VPC work, I think the diagram that I'm going to draw over here, it is one of the very basic, very core, very important diagram. It gives you a complete core of the network. Okay, so it is something like this. So you can think, just forget some time about the cloud, and just think any of just think something like this. Let's say let's say there's a one building, one company premises or one college premises, right? There's a complete entire building. Okay, let's say this building belong to, let's say this is the Linux World Company building, or inside this building there might be multiple different rooms, or maybe there might be multiple different labs. So this is the lab number one, and this is the lab number two. Okay, so two labs we have, or two different rooms we have, right? So so let's say this is the lab number one. And guys, this example is very important. I'm starting from very basics, but slowly you'll see this example step by step become very much complex in the terms of setup. So please try to link or understand this, all this vocabulary and word here, so I can link this topic multiple time in the future classes also. Okay, so this is the entire building of Linux World. This is lab number one, and this is the lab number two. Okay, and in this lab, okay, we as a company put some computer. So let's say this is the first of the one of the computer we put here, or one of the laptop we put here, and we put one more computer or laptop over here. Okay, and our requirement is pretty straightforward. I want between these two laptop, they can connect to each other, so that they can transfer that, or they can ping to each other. So what we'll decide, because this is the lab number one. This is one small lab of maybe 10 by 10 square feet or 100 by 100 square feet, right? So there might be 10 to 20 different computers or laptops and PCs over here, and maybe requirement is to connect all these 10 20 computers to each other. So we can say this is my area of my lab, or my local area. And in my local area, we would like to connect each other, means we want to set up our network. So that is the reason, guys, we use a word called LAN. This is my LAN, local area network. And because my local area, so we'll try to, because we know we know this laptop, if you want to connect other laptop PC, so without the network card, we can't attach my wireless or wired network. So in this both the laptop, I put one network card here, I put one network card here. Okay, so we'll put some physical network card. But interesting thing is, because this is my real laptop, so I can put a real physical network card. But same laptop, oh guys, when you guys know, when I say laptop, I mean to say operating system. And when I say operating system, so in the AWS world, the operating system we launch from the EC2 services. EC2 services. So let's say this is your EC2 instance, or let's say this is your EC2 instance. Okay, so in the real world, if you want to put some network card, you to go to market and buy a real network card, or Ethernet card, or network card. But in the AWS cloud, if you want to attach some network card, so it look like real, but there's some kind of in the cloud, guys, good thing is, okay, if you want to put some kind of network devices. Okay, uh, for example, let me give one more example here. Let's say in this LAN or in this lab, I would like to put one device, and that device is called switch as a device. So guys, maybe in the some of the lab, or in the company, you might see some kind of boxes where we have a lot of wires we connect. That physical device is called switch, and this is a real physical device we have to bought, we have to put somewhere. But same switch as a real device or network device, if you want to if you want to get from your cloud guys, or cloud services, or cloud service provider. Okay, so you can go to cloud, they will also give you switches, and that switches you can connect to your different instances for connectivity. Okay, but good thing is, guys, they give you switches, and we feel as a client that they give switches to us. But you know what, internally, if you try to understand their program, okay, by chance AWS doesn't give you program how they create the program. But if you try to understand, go inside the program, you know what, they have created some kind of software. So they have created some software, and then the beautiful thing is, okay, if you go to AWS cloud and say, I want some kind of network card, real device, I want some physical router or physical switch, can you provide me router, switch, or network card, right? So they say, yes, we'll provide. But behind the scene, you know what they're doing, right? They have written some program for us by some software, and using this program, they provide those network devices. So for us as a client, it looked like in the cloud, in their lab data center AG, they put the one devices for us, but technically or internally, there's some kind of program who is providing that physical devices. So it's so interesting. You know what? It is something like this. In my laptop, one program is running, but that program for the outside guys, they feel that program is not a real program, is not a software, it is a real router, is a real devices, something like this. Okay. That is the reason, guys, that is the reason. Right, normally cloud guys work on a concept, all right, it's called SDN, software defined network. So using software, they will provide, or they will define, or they will provide all the network devices or network facilities or the network concepts, or maybe sometimes network protocols also. Okay, so almost all the cloud guys work on a concept of SDN, software defined networking. So if I go to AWS and say, AWS, can you provide me some, for example, if you by chance, if you see here one vocabulary called route, or let's say internet gateway, means internet gateway means router. So if you click here, they will give one router to you, and it look like a real router. I can work the way we do in the work on the real router. Or maybe if you go here, they might give VPN, so it look like real VPNs. Okay, so it's like a real router or real VPNs or other things, right? But if you go inside the code, that by chance that doesn't provide you, but if you go inside the code, those VPN or router or switches actually coming from the software is the one. So you can think in this way. You can think in this way. Okay, by chance we are into the public cloud training, but guys, if you by chance attend any kind of private cloud training, or me from my for me, uh, where private cloud is the one, they give you software. AWS never provides software, and because they give you software, so we can create an entire cloud in our laptop. Okay, or there we can see this thing. So with the software, I can launch as many as our router or switches or network cards in my laptop. So one Windows running, a lot of router, a lot of switches, and a lot of network card are running in my laptop. So for my Windows, it is just a program for the outside guys who are using this. They feel it is a real devices. So very, very much cool, very much interesting program they are. Okay, but so but that is not important right now to discuss. But technically, what I'm talking about. So that easy reason, guys. Normally, cloud guys use this vocabulary, that through my program or through my software, we are giving you a service of what, to provide you network. So that's called NES service. Okay, and that easy reason, in the AWS cloud, if you want network card, so they have one program or a service called ENI. I think in my initial class I've talked about ENI, Elastic Network Interface. So if you go to EC2 services, okay, here you go and say that EC2, I am looking for one sub service of yours is called ENI. So if you see here, where it is, uh, network interface, this one, network interface, ENI. So this is what ENI service. And interesting thing is, if you go and click, they give one network card. Again, click one network card. So it look like a real network card and work like a, even though work like also a real network card. Okay, but internally in the inside the AWS cloud world, it is just a program, just a software. Or because it's just a program, you keep on running the program, 100 times you run, 100 network card you give you. So like it like a free of cost, but to work like a real network card. Okay, something like this. So so this one small thing, so again, come back to this topic. So let's say we have our own LAN, on LAN, and we put two computers, we attach a network card, and from this network card, we would like that both the let's say this is laptop number A and this is laptop B can connect to each other. So if you want to connect to each other, so according to my rule, first they should have physical connectivity. Plus they also have a network card. So we have attached the network card. Then you to have to put some physical wire. Okay, so how can we put the physical wire? Because there's not two laptops, there might be more laptops and computers. Let's say, let me add one more here, PC. Okay, so if you want everybody can connect to each other, so what can we do? We can add one intermediate device. One of the name would be switch, and we we take this device wire from here, connect to switch. We pick the wire from here, connect to switch. We take the wire from here, connect to switch. Pretty straightforward. And switch is the one come in the between, and is the one who help to connect all the guys in the LAN. Okay, in the LAN. So switch is one of the network device we we need. Okay. Now point over here is very simple, because all this system ABC, because they are connected with the switch. Okay, and because these guys want to connect to each other, so obviously everyone require the IP address, because without the IP address, how they can ping, how they can do SSS or open the website. So there's again one more prerequisite I explain you. Everybody require the IP address. Step number 3. So 1, 2, and 3 we are discussing here. Okay, because we require IP address, and because all the three guys require IP address, and finally they have to connect to the switch. So the again one more requirement we have, these IP address should belong to same network. So again, to one more rule of the networking, if they are connected to a switch, right, their IP address belong to same network, otherwise they don't have a connectivity. Okay, and guys, I'm not want to discuss much about the same network, because in my video I've already talked about, but it is something look like this. The IP should A should have a IP something like this: 192.168, let's say 1.1, or this IP address 192.168, let's say 1.2. This IP 192.168, 1.3. So in my guys networking basic class, I've discussed there. If you talk about initial 3 octet, 3 octet, 3 octet, all the 3 octet is same. Or because all the 3 octet is same in all the IP. Okay, let's consider this 3 octet is the name of the network. So this is the name of the network. So because the name of the network of all the guys are same, so I can say these IP belong to same network. Because they belong to same network, so I can say these guys, sometimes we can say is in the LAN, but right term would be these three system come in the same network, so I can use the switch to have a connectivity. Okay, so this is one way you can think in this way. So let's say this is the current lab environment in our company, where 3 computers we have same network, so we put the switch. But why we consider 3 octet as a name of the network? Because I think, guys, you might know the concept of net mask. So because the net mask of this IP is 255.255.10, so if 3 octet is 255, then initial 3 octet is the name of the network. Same here also, and same here also. And guys, you guys also might know from my basic classes, or you guys already know maybe. So if you convert this 255 into binary, is like 11111, 8 time 8 time 8 time, it's total 24 times. So net mask, it can also be written like this /24. So if you write in this way, it's called prefix length. It is not known as CIDR. If you guys know, if you say this is CIDR, it is not the right way to say. CIDR has a different meaning, but it is called prefix length. So either you write in this way or you write in this way, is called decimal notation, same thing. So guys, I'm not discussing this concept here because we have already discussed, right? So let's say this is one of the lab we have set up. Okay, guys, just give me 5 more minutes. I know I'm talking very basics about the networking for those guys who don't know this concept, because this concept is very important to understand the VPC. In 5 minutes, I'm just coming to the VPC and some more concepts on the VPC. Okay, and let's say in this company you have one more lab number 2, and there also we have some more computers over here. Okay, and because this is a different lab, so we want to have our different network or different LAN over here, network area, so local area network. Okay, and I want, because this computer will be a different computers, maybe in our company we give one dedicated lab just to put our own web server, right? So they are running in this computer web server, or maybe they are running some database server in this computer, or maybe they're running some other server over here, maybe load balance, or maybe some other servers. So they put this for them, they say this is a very important lab for me. So all the important computers or operating system and the server we put in this lab. This is a very common systems, not so much important. Only operating system just for testing or just for running some basic program and just for some small things, right? So we can dedicated give different lab for this, just to manage, just for management purpose, right? You can think in this way. So but these are the different computer, or maybe we might have a requirement that everybody might have to connect to each other. maybe load balancer want to connect web server has some program or web, backend program they want to connect to database server, maybe something like this. So again we need a connectivity. So because everybody belong to same LAN, and normally in the same LAN we all normally we put a switch. Okay, and because we put the switch, so we can put the wire the same way, put the network card, put the wire, or because they have switch in between. Okay, so the IP of these guys should again belong to same network. Belong to same network. Okay, so what IP address you can do? You can give any IP address. Okay, even though you can give IP of same range also, 192.168.1. But due to some reason, what is that same reason? In 10-20 minutes we'll discuss. But due to same reason, I would like to give a different network for these IPs. Okay, so let's say I would like to give this system a IP called, for example, IP called 192.168.2.1. Okay, if you see our initial 3 octet is of this IP is this one, so I can say this system and this IP belong to this network. And because this IP system IP network is this one, so let me use database server also same network range. This server also, or this computer also same network range. All the three guys belong to same network. I can say these three computers same network, because they are same network. I can use switch, because I use the switch. They have a DAC connectivity. But if you see here, if you talk about, let's say this computer, let me use the term here, D computer, E computer, or F computer, because E has this network range, or my different lab, one of the computer, let's see, has this network range. Okay, both the network, both the IP of C and E are in the different network. Different network. So I can say E and C, the two different computer in my company, maybe in the different lab, but they have it. But by chance they also have a different IP. They have a different IP. Obviously, IP should be different always, but these IP are in the different network. But maybe in the future you might have a requirement. Okay, these basic computer running some basic program or only operating system might have a requirement to connect these IPs, these servers or these computers. Okay, so what we have to do, so according to our rule, according to a rule, if some two computers want to connect to each other, they should have physical connectivity. Okay, plus they should have IP address. So right now good thing is they have the IP address already, so everyone has the IP address here. Okay, they require the network card, so everyone has a network card. So step number 2 and 3 is done. But one more thing we have to consider, because let's say I have a requirement that I have computer number C can connect to computer E or maybe F, or maybe computer B can want to connect to E or F or D. Okay, but the issue is the IP of B and IP of F is a IP come from different network. Or because they have come from different network, so between these computer we have to put one device called router somewhere over here. It means, because according to this rule, if two IPs come from different network, we have to use router. So this part is done, but you should have physical connectivity. Okay, so if you want to do a physical connectivity between A and F and A and D and B and E and B and D, okay, rather than you keep on connecting wire to from one to one, right? What can we do? We can take one wire from this switch, connect to this router, take one wire from this switch, connect to this router. So finally, everyone can connect to each other. So by chance, for example, if A want to connect to F, so A will first go to switch. From the switch, they go to router. From the router, they go to this switch. From this switch, they will go to this system. So everybody has a connectivity. Okay, but according to my rule, okay, does everyone has a physical connectivity? Yes. Everyone have IP? Yes. Network card? Yes. Same or different network connectivity? This part is done. So according to this diagram, everyone is connected to each other. Okay, but guys, this is a very common typical setup. So if you go to any colleges, any universities, any if you see your home network also, if you go to company, very basic typical setup this one is. But this is a way very commonly way we connect to each other. But in this entire setup, just try to understand two or three basic things. The first thing is, okay, this is a Linux World company. And these computer wire IP devices, because they belongs to Linux World Company, you guys understand this point. I know we're talking very basic level, but very much still related to one of the very internal core concept of the networking of the cloud. Okay, so because Linux, these devices and everything belong to Linux World Company. So what Linux World did to tell the world that this is my device and I own this. So Linux World created this outside boundary and say whatever has come inside this boundary, they belongs to me. Or I can say Linux World as a company to tell this belongs to me and nobody without my permission can come in and use none of my devices, router or systems. They created this kind of boundary that isolate the device for this company. But maybe let's say Lanceware is there in one of the area, one of the land, or one of the plot number. Let's say plot number 5. This is one of my address, or maybe nearby my address, maybe in the next plot or my next land, a plot number 6 over here. There might be one other company, and that company has their own boundary, own premises. Okay, they have their own personal lab, maybe one lab, two labs, three labs. They have more devices, more wires, more computers, maybe. But they said this is my company XYZ. All the devices belongs to me. Okay, I'll put inside my boundary. Nobody can come in or maybe go out, especially come in, I can say, without my permission. This is my isolated boundary. Okay, or I can use one more word here. One more word here. Lansford said, this is my private world, right? This is my private world. I know, I can see what is there. Okay, this is my private world. And in this private world, the way I can decide how much router I would like to use, how much switch I have to use, IP and network range, everything I decide. Or maybe there might possibility this computer has this IP, but maybe other company also have one computer has same IP, maybe because they have their own personal lab, own personal computer. They can decide their IP address. They can decide how much switches they want. So everybody can have they have their own isolated world or private world. Okay, but in this example, guys, if you talk this Lions company is real, physical, is there in the real physical land of some area of acres land, maybe square foot area. These devices, the labs and switches, real is that they are actual or real, or I can say physical. There's always we have seen this, right? But you know what I'm trying to tell you here is the screen that you're seeing right now, exactly same setup we can create virtually also. What I mean by virtually, okay, so again guys, it leads to the same topic what we have discussed in my initial classes called multi-tenancy and isolation. If you guys remember in my initial class of the AWS, I told you you can think a cloud or AG or data center is like a, I give one example like a hotel. Okay, and hotel means a hotel is a real, but anybody check in as a guest, and that hotel give one room to that guest, and the till time the guest stay there for 1 day or 2 day. The guest think this is my room, my home, my area. This is my isolated world. It's belong to me. I can do anything and everything here. But same time, one more guest come up, they will have different area. Okay, and they think this is the only area, and this is the entire. This is my entire world, right? So I can put my stuff over there, and we can put our things here. Okay, but technically, this area, everything belongs to not belongs to this guest and not belongs to this guest. Till that the time guest is giving the amount is like a pay as we go model. They can stay here, they can use the resources of that hotel, but everything is belong to the main hotel area. Okay. Similar guys, in the cloud world, guys, this is actually called, this is also actually known as multi-tenancy. So multiple tenant come and stay in one area in the same one big land, but everybody think this is my area. Okay, but whenever they use anything over here, they feel this belong to me. They might use TV, they might use bedroom and all things, the stuff there. That point in time they feel this is my, but it's not, technically not, right? So I can use one vocabulary here, is called virtual. Something like this. Okay, something like this. So if you go to cloud and they have their own personal data center or own AZ, they have own devices, own maybe program that's provide you devices. I or told you already, it's called SDN or whatever they have, or maybe own wires, own internet connections, right? But till the time I use the resources from the cloud, I feel it's mine, but it's not mine. So I can use one vocabulary is called virtual. So you know what I'm doing here? I'm using the resources from the cloud, right? Or I can say virtual resources. Okay, from where? From the cloud. And how I'm using? Okay, if you want to use any resources from the cloud, first AWS say you have to first create the account. You know, a root account you create, log in there, and after login there, AWS say I have created one room for you, or I can say entire world for you, entire premises for you. And you know what is that premises that I'm talking about? Is this one, this boundary. So AWS say I have created this boundary for you. Okay, and this is your own private boundary in my cloud. And whenever until the time you use this boundary, you have to pay for to me per hourly or per monthly basis. Okay, so you feel that this resource belongs to you, but it's not. So I'm giving all my resources, my RAM CPU to you virtually, right? So, but how I'm giving and how I'm giving this the main thing is isolation. How I'm giving the isolation a private thing, right? Using a program called VPC, virtual private computer, virtual private cloud here. Okay, so guys, you know, in the real world, the building that you see, there's an entire boundary. Nobody can come in or go out without your permission. Permission here is called rule. Okay, that give you feel of isolation or private, right? So same thing if you want to achieve in the cloud, you have to create a VPC. And the good thing is AWS has given this VPC to us. Until now, guys, whatever we did, we always inside the VPC. Even though, guys, I just wanted to show you, if you go up to EC2 service, you launch the instance. And you know, guys, launching the instance means, right? For example, if I draw here, so you launch this instance, for example, instance B. Okay, so it is compulsory. It is compulsory if you launch this instance would be somewhere in some of the lab, either lab one, lab two. You can think in this way: if you're one building that has two rooms, and if you bought one laptop, obviously either you have to put the laptop in lab room one or loop or lab number two. There's no other option. Okay, but both the rooms should belong to what that building. So here the building name Linus word is exactly equals to VPC. And here this lab or room is exactly equals to a vocabulary that we use here is called subnet. Subnet. Okay, so you know what I'm talking about. Whenever you create a new account in any of the cloud, for example, if you talk about AWS cloud, they give you pre-created building that's called VPC. And by chance, the name of the VPC they give you is called default. They give this name, but we can change the name or we can create a new one. That's a different point. And by chance, guys, in this building or VPC, okay, they give you pre-created lab, maybe two labs or three labs or two or three rooms. Technically, here the lab and room is known as subnet. So it means any of the resources you launch in the AWS, right? You have to put in some of the subnet. Without putting in subnet, right? It is impossible to launch anything here. Okay, so for just for example, guys, whenever you go to launching any instances, you guys know this one, right? So let me show you this screen. Okay, so you are launching one instance. Instance means like a laptop that have RAM, CPU, and hard disk, have a network card, something like this. So if you click next, and if you click next, in this screen, in this screen, they're talking about you're going to launch one laptop, 10 laptops, but this laptop would become inside the building called Linux World, typically known as VPC. And where it is written here, see here, network. And the name of the network is, see, a default. Okay, and there is no way to say no, I don't want to use this lab, or I don't want to use this building. There's no way. Okay, you can't answer like this. You have to use one of the building. And this building we haven't created. This VPC is provided by whenever you create a new account. There's a different point. We can create one more building. There's a different point. or that's called one more VPC, but your computer would be somewhere in one of the building, either in first building or second building. Typically, I mean to say VPC. And because you're putting something in VPC, so in the VPC, there might be multiple subnets or labs. So by chance, guys, they give you these subnets. This subnet you can think right now is look like a lab or room. And by chance they give you three labs, and there's no way to unselect this. Either put here, put here, put here. If you go for no preferences, they automatically select one lab for you. But if you say no, I would like to launch one laptop with RAM, CPU, and network card. I don't want to put in none of my lab. Obviously, in not possible, right? You have to put somewhere in some of the room, right, of this building. Okay, it's something like this. So technically, if you try to think, right, AWS given you one entire building, it is equal to VPC, and that give you feel that that this is your own isolated world. That is the reason we use a word called private. Okay, and by chance this entire building is not real. It look like real, but it's not real. So I use the word virtual, but is everything is there in the cloud. Is called cloud. So VPC. And guys, lot of guys who know AWS always consider VPC is like a network as a service. It is, no doubt, but VPC is not only a network as a service. VPC is one service, okay, who give you this entire building, this labs, the switches. I will explain about the switches, wires, router connectivity, right? The entire building. Normally we use a word called infrastructure. Okay, so VPC one who give you entire your personal infrastructure on the cloud. So normally I I use this term called VPC as a service that give you infrastructure as a service. And guys, when I say infrastructure, it cover everything. It cover everything. It cover Kubernetes, Docker, databases, containers, security, RAM, CPU, routers, switches, everything is come up. So I normally consider VPC is the one who give you the entire infrastructure to you. Yeah, mostly in the infrastructure, they're talking more about the networking. They're giving a lot of thing about the networking. But apart from networking, they establish this isolated world for you where you can put all any of your steps what you want. Okay, so at your choice, you can take a VPC as just one of the example in NAS, but I normally consider it to give you entire infrastructure to you. Okay, I normally consider. Uh, so this is one thing. Let's talk something more about this. So it means whenever you create a new account, they give you one building. Until now, guys, you know or you don't know, we are using and putting everything here. And in most of the services, it might not be visible which VPC you're putting or which lab you're putting, but they are putting somewhere in your somewhere your services or your data. Or maybe you go to EBS, they won't talk about which subnet they're putting, maybe which network they're putting, but they are putting some of the some of the network, your storage or your whatever resources you use on the cloud. Okay, now so main topic guys here is I just want to first try to give you a feel what actually VPC is. Okay, and VPC guys is just name of the concept or name of the service, right? But when I say this, my company name is Linux World. This is equals to a vocabulary called network. So network is a vocabulary, even though if you see here, network is a vocabulary. Okay, so here either you can use the word network or you can use the word VPC. So sometimes we use the word VPC, sometimes we use the word network, is same thing. But this lab or this room is known as subnets. So in your account, your network or VPC or subnet, everything is already pre-created whenever you create a new account. So what we are doing here? So we are in this training to create our own customized building or own customized subnets. So that's our plan for today. And if you want to create a subnet or a building or network, right, without knowing this concept or diagram, it is impossible to connect. Okay, why impossible? When I start building or creating or customizing, you come to know why I'm saying this. Okay, so let's go. and do and create our own personal building, or I say VPC or network. Okay, but one more thing, guys, you understood very interesting. Maybe in the first go you might not able to understand, but when I start doing the practical, you will link very easily. Okay, you know what, guys? Whenever you create a lab in the AWS, that is equals to actually subnet. When I create a subnet, right? That point in time, right? What actually use of subnet? Subnet is actually main thing, right? Subnet is the one who is the giving you the lab or the room, and subnet is the one where you actually put your laptop or your EC2 instance. Okay, when you put your EC2 instance, right? What you need a real RAM or real CPU. Otherwise, how you launch the OS? And if you need a real RAM or a real CPU, where it's come from? It's come from real device, and where the real device is available in the AWS is there in your AWS data center called AG, Every Zone. It means if you say I am going to launch one instance called B, okay, you require RAM and CPU, and RAM and CPU come from, or maybe some other things come from availability zone. Okay, so what I'm talking about, guys, whenever you create any room or any subnet in the AWS, you have to tell where you would like to launch this subnet. Means which AG you would like to use. Okay, you would like to use. So it is not like this. You say I launched my lab or room or subnet without any data center. Okay, you have to decide which AG you would like to use, and that is a reason, right? Whenever guys you see a subnet name, these are the three subnets we have or three rooms we have. After this, you can see, yeah, they also show you your AG name. So this room is there in 1A data center, 1B, and 1C. Right? They create three room in all the three data centers. That is their choice. There might be possibility. Okay, I create three room in the same data center, or 10 room in the 5 year, 2 year, 3 year. So you can create any way, but this is not created by us, it's covered by Amazon. So they decide, let launch one room in 1A, second room in 1B, and third room in a very different data center. And all these three room put in one boundary that look like a one boundary, but it's not like a real boundary, it's like a virtual boundary, but it look like a real boundary, right? But it's virtual. Okay, and this entire virtual boundary name is called default, or let's say here the company name called Linux World. Okay, so it means, guys, it is compulsory that if you create a subnet, even though I show you today how to create a subnet, it is compulsory if you create a subnet or room, it belongs to one of the AG. Okay, but obviously, guys, right now I'm creating everything in the inside the Mumbai, or by chance in the Mumbai they have only three AG, so there's only three choices you have, either launch in 1A or 1B or 1C. There's a different point. Okay, but there's a great reason, guys, why Amazon has launched first lab, second lab, and third lab in different AG. Okay, and why they launch we will discuss in my upcoming classes, but one of the reason is because of the disaster issues. Okay, by chance there might be possibility okay, some disaster come up, or maybe some kind of physical disaster, or earthquake, like something like this come up, or entire or AZ 1A 1A goes down, or because this lab or room is there, the entire labs goes down. Okay, and if the entire lab go down, so all the computers, which is device, routers, network, everything won't work for us. Okay, so what company normally do? They always try to create a same copy of lab one, like lab two or lab three, maybe in a different AG as a backup or as a replica. So, guys, we have a discussion on this. I don't want to discuss right now much. We have a discussion on this, especially when we go for topic or ELB. It is called elastic load balancer. Okay, but just understand one small thing here. One small thing here. In Guys, very small thing, but to be, I think this is the right time to understand, right? In the AWS, even though till now I haven't explained you in this way, but in the AWS, if you want to launch EC2 instance, there is no way to tell AWS that I want this EC2 to launch in 1A data center. You can decide which region you want. Let's say in my case, in the top, I have decided I want Mumbai as a region. By chance I get the wrong spelling. Am I spelling right? Yeah. We can decide. But there is no way available that you can say I can launch AWS in 1A or 1B availability zone or my data center. There's no way available. Okay, even though if guys you see here, there's no option available to decide which AG you use. Okay, but we can decide in other way, because we know whenever you launch any computer, and because computers always belongs to a room means lab means subnet, and subnet is always belongs to AZ. Okay, so if you have a requirement to launch some computer in 1A, so just go and look for and the lab or the subnet that's that has been hosted or running in the 1A. So if you launch any computer in this subnet, ultimately and finally your instance will launch in one. But there's no direct way. So what I mean by this, guys, don't worry if you don't understand, but this is a way to work, right? So there's no way given by the AWS, right, where you decide, no, I want my EC2 instance, one I'm launching here, I would like to launch in 1B. There's no way to access. But what can I do? I can decide and find that subnet of that room that is by chance a part of 1B. So if I launch in this room my computer or my instance, finally and ultimately they will launch in 1B. So this kind of way you can use, and this way actually AWS thing actually, AWS never directly go and launch the instance there. They put in your room. If your room is there in 1B, so finally it launch in 1B, or they get the resources from 1B. So what I mean by this, when I go for some more practical, we'll discuss there. Okay. So finally, guys, I have given you some of the vocabulary. You become more comfortable, and we go more in depth, detail about VPC when we start doing a practical. Practical means when we start creating our own personal or customized VPC. Okay, but I think very high level you understand the idea. Plus, you also understand this idea. Okay, if you want two computers can connect to each other, because the ultimate goal is ultimate goal is we need a networking. And obviously guys, we need a networking. If you think in this way, if there is no networking, okay, so what happened, you know what, you can launch the instance in the AWS, but how you can connect that instance from a laptop with ping or SSH command? And if you don't have a connectivity, you can't do SSH. And if you can't do SSH or remote login, how can you configure this? And how your client will connect to your website if you have, if, for example, if you connect the web services there. So final goal is we need a networking. That's that for sure. But if you need a networking, you have to consider these four steps. But most of the important steps is step number 5 that I haven't discussed today. Maybe tomorrow we'll discuss, because for this we have to discuss a lot about the core internal concepts of networking. That's called netting, network address translation. Okay, so this from there's a different point. Uh, so uh, so we guys will talk about this twist number 5 tomorrow maybe. But today, guys, what I'm doing here, right? Let's go and create our own VPC. Okay, so if you create new account in the AWS, they have given you pre-created VPC. By chance, the name of the VPC is a default. And how can you check? If you go to a VPC service page, and this is the new account in my case, right? And if you see here in the VPC page, there's only one VPC they have in my Mumbai region. Okay, and if you click on the VPC, you'll see only one VPC they have. And if you click here, the name of the VPC is the default VPC. Okay, so this is the name of the VPC. So but what our plan is, we have to create our own customized VPC or custom VPC, our own VPC, I can say. But if you want to guys create your own VPC, then you have to think and you have to use the approach of that approach that I explain you right now, approach of this building approach, this one. Otherwise, it's very harder to understand the steps, right? Because there are lots of things we have to do. Even though we have to go to routing tables, gateway, connectivity, tons of things we have to add in this diagram. We'll do soon, right? So let's just keep this diagram in mind if you want to create a VPC. So what exactly we want? We would like to create our own building. That's our requirement. That is equals to create our own VPC. So let's start from here. How we can create our own building or own VPC in the cloud. So first of all, you have to go to VPC services. This is the VPC dashboard. Okay, and there's option to to launch the VPC. Just go to your VPC and the option called create a VPC. Click and just give your VPC name, guys. Right now, let's say VPC name is like a building, right? So let's say this is Linux World VPC. Just give any name VPC. So this is the first step. But the most important step over here is right is IPv4 CRDR block. Without this, it won't possible to create the VPC. So what is the meaning of IPv4 CRDR block? Okay, so let's come to this diagram again. Okay, let me create this diagram one more time to make you comfortable, right? So I told you guys what is the VPC. VPC is like this building. So I have given this building a name called Linux World VPC over here. Okay. But what's your plan in the future? Why you want to create this building? Because in this building, we will have to create a multiple rooms, or I can say multiple labs. This is one of the labs I would like to create. And the second labs I would like to create. But why you want to create the lab? Because it is because without creating the labs, it won't be possible. Because final and ultimate goal is to run my servers or run my laptops or EC2 instances. So because I would like to put multiple instances here, instance one, instance two, instance two. Let's say A, B, and same example, guys. But there is a reason why I'm again writing this again this diagram. And so this is my one lab, and you guys know here this lab is called subnet. So I have to create subnet number one here. Let me use name called lab one here. And one more lab I would have to use lab number two. It is called subnet actually, subnet two. Okay, but in this subnet I would have to put some more computer, let's say DURF. Now, important point here is right. Because before you create a VPC, you have to plan this kind of diagram. Plus, you have to plan how many rooms you want. Second, you have to plan in this room, right? How many computers you would like to add in this room, or want to run in this room in the future. Let's say you have a requirement that in the future in this room I have to run 10,000 computers, 1 lakh computers, 20,000 computers, or maybe 100 computer maximum. This your plan maybe. Okay, so you know what, if you think you would like to run these much computer, and we know because this all the computer belong to same lab, because they belong to same lab, it is always good practice in the same lab we give all the computers same IP address, and all the guys internally connect to switch. Okay, and this switch have a wired connectivity. And you know, guys, one more interesting thing is about the cloud, guys, or cloud services or NAS service of the cloud. Maybe you go to public cloud or private cloud, right? The good thing is, as soon as you create a lab or subnet in the cloud, like if you go to OpenStack, it's called private cloud, or AWS called public cloud, right? The beautiful thing about the cloud is, right? They say I'm giving you network services, and you know what I mean by the network services here. They say as soon as you create a lab, behind the scene, because this is very but obvious requirement that we need a switch. So behind the scene, I will automatically create a switch for you. You don't have to worry about it. And the interesting thing is they say as soon as you launch one computer, one instance, one VM, I automatic get one wire and connect this wire to this computer. So this connectivity of the networking we will do on the fly for you. You don't have to worry about. But if you go to real lab, you have to buy the switch, you have to add one wire, put in the socket or network connectors, put the connectors and attach there. But they say, I will do all this facility for you. You don't have to worry about. and because I'm doing everything behind the scene, so there's no reason you as a user to manage this switch. So this entire switch is managed by internally by our cloud. Maybe this physical switch or software defined switch, that's not important, but they say we manage this thing. And that is the reason, guys, in the AWS cloud world, if you try to find any tab, any services where you can see your switches name, there's no option available. There's no way you can see your switches. Okay, there's no way available. They say we are doing for you. You don't have to worry about. Okay, about these Y and these switches. And the beautiful thing about this switches is, okay, they say, man, this switch is very dynamic. Okay, because guys, if you guys ever see any switch here, I think everybody has seen. But if you, for example, let's say Cisco is one company who created switches for us, right? So so if you guys switch any see any switches, it will look like this. So in the switches we have this kind of ports. So guys, this is the um, uh, 24 port switch. See, 24 ports we have. So maximum 24 computers we can connect to the switch. Okay, but the switch that is given by the cloud, normally they say it is a dynamic kind of switch. So if you add one computer, dynamically I add one port here. If you add one more computer, I add one port. If you add one more computer, I will add one port. So as soon as you keep on adding the computers, I will keep on adding the ports on the fly for you. So if you add 100 computer, dynamically I add the 100 ports. And why is possible? Because actually internally this is not the real switch actually they're using. Okay, internally they're actually using some kind of switch they created by the software. And software is the one who internally creating the ports for us this by the software defined programs or networks. It's just different point. So we don't have to guys worry about the switch and this connectivity. AWS will taken care for us. Okay, but we have to worry about to launching this OS. But before guys you launch this OS, we have to do one more thing. Okay, one more thing. Even though if you guys notice till now, whenever you launch any OS in the AWS, if you notice one thing, okay, this OS will automatically get one IP address. This OS automatically get one IP address. Okay, and guys, if you know a little bit about the IP address, okay, if you want to give any computer IP address, obviously without the IP address, how we connect, right? So there's two way to give the IP address. The first way is you manually go to the OS physically and give the IP address and fix the IP address there. Is called static or manual IP. Or other way is you want as soon as the OS start, that OS will automatically get the IP address called dynamic IP. And for getting the dynamic IP or automatic or getting the IP automatic, right? We have to run one program or one server or services somewhere or one computer somewhere. And that computer will run some kind of server is called DHCP server, dynamic host uh, configuration protocol server. Okay, so what happened, guys? Whenever this computer or one of the computer run, they will send the request somewhere on the network and say, hey, I am the new computer, I don't have the IP address, so this request go to DHCP. DHCP give IP address to this guy dynamically. I know most of the guys know DHCP, but maybe some of the guys doesn't know, so I'm explaining in this way. So if you notice in the AWS, whenever you launch any computer, automatically they get they get the IP address. This is called dynamic IP. And how they get dynamically from the DSC server. An interesting thing is, guys, in the AWS cloud, whenever you launch any new lab or new subnet, behind the scene, AWS has created one DHCP server for you. And after the kind of they launch the DHCP server for you, they connect this server with the switch. Okay, so you don't have to worry about the SCP server. They launch for you and they do the connectivity and they configure the entire DHCP server for you. So you don't have to worry about. Or because they say we are managing the DHCP server for you, so there's no way you can go and check about the DHCP server. There's no option available to go and change and delete and remove. Okay, they say we are managing for you. You don't have to worry about. So they launch the switches, they launch the DHCP, they put the wire, they do the connectivity, everything they do. The only thing that they don't know that we have to do as a cloud engineer, the one thing is they don't know how many computer we want. One computer, two computer, three computer, 100 computer. Obviously, how they know. So that's what we have to decide. Okay, and one more thing they don't know, right? They don't know that they say we know you want IP address, DSCP will give you, but they say I don't know which IP you want and which IP range you want or which IP network you want. Okay, so DSCP will give you IP, but how DSCP know which IP you want? You want IP 172.24 something, or 192.168.1 something, or 10.0.0.1 something? Which IP you know? So AWS say, can you please help me to tell my DSC server internally, uh, because DSC is one who giving IP to all the guys or unique IP to all the guys. So can you please give me the range? So you know what we have to do? We have to tell the DSCP server, do one thing. Whenever the first computer come up, just give the first computer this IP, second computer this IP, then this IP, then this IP, then this IP. And you guys know in the IP world, the last number is 1.255. Yeah, after 212, the 2.01 come up, 2.0, 2.1 come up. But let's say my requirement is, I know in my lab, maximum computer that I'm going to launch is 250 around, or 200 around, or 255 or 256 around. So what I'll do here, I'll tell my DSCP server, this is the range I am giving to you. That's the maximum IP we need in the future, because I don't want to launch more computer here in this lab. Okay, so do one thing. Any computer you can give the IP in any of these IPs, but give the unique IPs, but from this range. So you have to give this range to the DSCP server. But if you notice, guys, in this range, all the computers start from this IP. Okay, or because all the computers start from this IP. Okay, so in the networking world, anybody who know the networking, so in the networking world, okay, if you want to tell somebody that this is my range, okay, or rather you say in this way, this is my range. One more way we can use to tell somebody like here in the DSCP, that DSCP do one thing, name of my range or name of my network is this one. Okay, so please, can you DSCP, can you please work for this network? So either you use this way or this vocabulary, can you work for this network? Or I can say, can you please go work for this range? It is the same thing, there is no difference. But technically we never say it this way, please use this range. We always say, can you please work for this network? This, but technically or logically, that is the same thing. So technically, you tell my DSCP, you have to work for this one. And because in the networking world, IP always come with 4 bytes of octet, you can think. So normally network, it's called network name. So network name, guys, always end with a 0. So I'll tell my DSCP, my network range is this one, or my network name is this one. So can you work for this network? Okay, but you tell one more thing. One more thing. Okay, that the total number IP here, if you start from 0, because my network name 0 to 255, the total IP 256 means 2 to the power 8. To tell DSCP that in my network we have maximum 2 to the power 8 IP or 250 IP in totality. Okay, to tell this part that my total range is 256, you also give you have to also give the total IPs come in this network. For this, in the networking world, we use one other vocabulary, is called netmask. So netmask is a way to which we decide how many computer we have, is called how many hosts come in this network. And for this, for this, we have to use 255.255.255 and this 0 means this 3 number is called network and this number is called host. Okay, if you convert this host into decimal to the binary, it is total 8-bit, means 2 to the power 8, and this is exactly equal to this one. So guys, again, I'm not pushing you toward the networking part. If you go to my basic networking classes, I think this concept I a little bit explain you more there. But I just want to recall you because it's very important, because without knowing this concept, it is very harder to work with a VPC. So finally, what I'm talking about, okay, I'm talking about whenever you create this subnet, you have to tell one thing. You have to tell your network name, or I can say network range, plus the total number of IP come in this network, or I can say net mask. These two things you have to tell while creating the subnet. Otherwise, how they know how many computer will come up, or how they know what IP they should start with? Okay, so finally, you have to tell in this way that this network or this lab or this subnet will work for this network with this range. Like I told you guys, this 24 is exactly equals to this one. Similarly, I already explained in my last example, because these IP we already given to lab 1. So we'll give a different IP to lab 2. So let's say my lab 2, my plan is to give 192.168, 2.1, 2.2, let's say 2.255. So I'll tell my lab 2, because this is a different lab. So behind the scene, AWS will create DHCP server for this lab, because DHCP work per lab or per LAN. So per LAN, we have to create DHCP. Okay, they will automate a switch for you. They will do all the connectivity for you. They will do behind the scene, AWS guys. But we will tell this DHCP server, or I can say this lab, that your range is this one, or your network is this one. So tell while creating this lab, we have to tell that 192.168.2.0 is your network name, or your range is same thing, and total number IP is 24. Means this one, and this means 252 to the power 8 IP means 250 IPs. And by chance, anybody who don't know this calculation, it's purely network concepts. Maybe if you want, maybe in my some of my IIC Rise class, I will create some video on this called subnet or subnetting or FLSM, VLSM, lots of things. Normally, if we go to some kind of Cisco training, CCNA and other things, we discuss there. But that much knowledge we don't require here. Okay. So final guys, my plan is to create our own VPC. And this VPC, I would like to create 2 different labs. So according to our requirement, we decided this is the network range or network name we want. This is a network range and network name we want. But the important thing here is, right, before you create lab 1, let's go subnet 1 and say, this is my network name. I would like to create one more lab. This is my 2.0, my network range or name. Because these 2 labs or subnet would be part of your building. So you know what you have to do, right? While creating the building or VPC, okay, what you have to do, you have to tell something about your building. You tell something about your VPC. And you know what you have to tell? You tell in this building or in this VPC, right? We will create multiple labs, maybe lab 1, lab 2, or maybe hundreds of labs. Sometime we might create. Okay, but but the point here over here is, right, in this building, okay, whatever labs we create, this lab will gonna use some of the IP range. Okay, and if I try to write the IP range here for this building is like this. So 192.168.1.0 is the network name, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3 till 1.255. So this is the total 250 IP used in this lab. Then next IP, obviously after 1.255, 2.0 come. So next number 2.1 till 2.55. These range used by lab 2. Or maybe in the future, we don't know right now, but maybe in the future we require some more labs. Need to some maybe my network skill or some more computer come up, or we to design something new. So maybe in the future we might use in this lab maybe 3.0 or something like this. Maybe some hundreds or 50 IP we used, or maybe more. Okay, we don't know, but maybe in the future we require. So technically, you know what you have to do. So while creating the VPC, you have to think for future perspective also, and you have to think maybe in the future we require more IP, more IP, more IP. So you know what you have to do? You tell the complete range of the IP. So you tell maybe my IP inside my VPC in all my labs and all the labs, or maybe in the future lab, start from 1.0, then 1.1, 1.2, or maybe in the last, maybe the maximum IP that I'm going to use is this one, 255.25, maybe this one. Okay. So if guys, if you try to count all these IP, you know what? Or maybe there's some more IP in the top. If you see 192.168, 0.0, 0.1. So you try to count all this IP, it become 2 to the power 16, or technically 65,536. This much IPs you if you try to write here. So let's say your future plans is maybe your network or your VPC or your entire building have multiple labs, multiple subnet, and that may maybe maximum reach you might see in the future. So what can you say here? Okay, you can say to your VPC, these are total number of IPs we're going to use in the future. Either you say in this way, but normally in the networking world, in this all the IP, the two number is common as the initial number. So we normally say that VPC, your network range is this one. You to work for this network. And because network, we always give the name and the initial last two number, we always start with 0. So we say VPC, your network name is this one. Or because in the network, this much IP come up, and this IP range normally we denote with net mask. So this will be your net mask. Or I can say /16. Same thing. So technically what I'm talking about, okay, first we have to create a building. And while creating building or the VPC, we have to tell the VPC the network name, right? But technically you can think in this way. We have to give the range of all the IP come in your building. Maybe some IP here, some IP here. Okay, we have to give here. So finally, you know what finally I decided that in my building, the total number IP we're gonna use maybe right now in the future is have this range or have this network with this net mask. That I decided. This is my VPC range, my entire building range. Now, because you decided this one, so it means if you create any lab, there's the requirement, because guys, I told you without the lab or without subnet, you won't able to put any of the computer. So when you guys create any lab or subnet, right? So here you also give the range, but this range should come from this bigger one. This bigger one. So it is not like this. In the VPC, you use this range, or in the subnet, you start with 7172 or 10 or something else. You do reuse some range between this. And guys, by chance in the networking world, this concept is called subnetting. Subnetting. So some sub part of the network from this bigger one, you have to use this. Maybe guys, this might look a little bit more technical for those guys who are very new in the networking world, but even this much knowledge also we don't require in the AWS classes. But I'll try to guys give some touch base so you can feel guys while creating the VPC what exactly we are doing here. Okay, so technically guys, while creating the VPC, the only thing, this is Linux for VPC, only thing you have to give is the range of your network or network name. I don't know why they use CIDR block. There might be some reason, because sometimes instead of 16 we use 17 or 21, that is called CIDR. But let's say this is the actual network name. It is also known as CIDR block. You can think, they don't have exact meaning if you go purely networking world, because one of the biggest networking program in the market is called CCIE, the one of the advanced program from Cisco. So I've done this program, trained multiple hundreds of guys in my initial career of my life. So I've done hundreds of things in networking world. But so if you go that level of networking, you come to know this is not the exact thing. But let's consider they are the same thing. Okay. So what are they're talking about? They're talking about, you just give your network name. And I decided, according to my plan, my design, that my network range or name is this one, with netmask this one. That's all. That's the only thing you have to decide. Okay. So guys, creating the VPC is so simple, but I think you might understood. If you don't know the concept of network or netmask or range or network name, it would be harder to write here what I have to write here. But creating the VPC is so simple. So the guy, this part is done. Let me use it. And guys, by chance if you don't understand this concept, don't worry, you can use the same example to practice in the future. And click, that's all. Okay, this click is exactly equals to okay, creating our building. So this building has been created the way I keep on explaining. So this building has been created. Okay. But in this building, there is no lab. Okay. It means if you go to a service called EC2, okay, and if you try to launch one of the computer here, okay, computer in the Mumbai, because I launched my building in the Mumbai. So guys, if you see here, the building that you created is called VPC you created or network you created will be listed here. See here, this one come up. But what error message they throw here? They say in this building there is no subnet found. There is no lab. If there is no lab, without the lab, how I put my computer here? Or I can say in the other way, if there is no subnet, it means I don't know technically which data center I have to go. Because I told you guys already, whenever you launch the subnet, you tell your AG name. So technically here AWS is confused behind the scene. I know you're from Mumbai, but I don't know in Mumbai from which AG you have to go. Because you haven't tell me your subnet name. And without subnet, if you try to go next, it won't allow. It's not allowing you to go next. So finally, I'm trying to prove you that creating the subnet or the room is also compulsory. That's what I'm trying to tell you here is. So what exactly we have to do here? So next step is after you create the VPC, you have to create your lab or means a subnet. Okay. So for this, again, I'm going to VPC. Okay. And guys, after create your VPC, this VPC we have created. Now next step is, if you see here, subnets. We have to create a subnets. Okay. And this subnet is already created because 3 subnets who told you is provided by AWS initially. Okay. But if you want to create your own subnet, just click here. The subnet, guys, is exactly equals to creating your own lab. Just click on the subnet. And obviously, guys, you are going to create a lab. So, but obviously, in which building you want to create this lab? The building that we created or is already created for us? So multiple VPC or multiple buildings we can create. So my plan is to create this subnet in this building. Okay. So you have to select his, I will have to create in this one, LWVPC. Okay. And the automated pop-up, guys, this building is working with a predefined range, this one. It means you are going to create a subnet. Okay. And subnet, internally they launch the DSA for you. And the DSCP, you have to give the range and some of the range, but this range come from the bigger range. Or I can say you have to use some network. This network come from bigger network. And that is, guys, this is smaller network or small range is called subnet. This is a technical term from the network world, sub network or bigger one. Okay. So here you have to give, first of all, you have to give lab name. I just give lab 1, for example, just for testing, or I say Linux word lab 1. But this is actually subnet 1. Okay. And second, you have to give your range. Okay, here range would be from this bigger one. So according to my plan, I have to give this range. So 192, 168, 1.0/24. There's some more, guys. If you know the networking, you guys will go for 25, 26, something like this also. But 24 is one of the simplest example. Let me go for this one. Okay. But if you see here, there's no error come up because this range is a smaller range come between this bigger one. Because your lab range IP will always be in between the range of your company or office or VPC. But if you try to go for other range, for example, 172 point let's say 24.0.0 slash let's say 24. If you try to go for this, okay, and in this example, guys, because this range is entire different range, and this range is not coming, or this network is not coming from this bigger one, or this is not the subnet of this one. If you try to see here, but obviously, guys, it start from 192, it start from 172. in this case, if you try to create this network, it fail. And very clear answer, this range is not within the range from VPC. Okay, so it won't allow you. Okay, so whatever range you use, or as a subnet you use, it come from this bigger subnet, or come within this bigger subnet. That's what I'm trying to explain here. So let me use this one. 24. And one more thing I told you guys already. Okay, that's very important thing. When you launch the lab, technically, you know what you're describing? You're telling to the AWS that in this lab, whenever whatever resources we use or launch, take the resources from some AG. And because you're doing everything in the Mumbai region, so there's only 3 AG. So you have to tell the AG, use 1A, 1B, or 1C. Let me use 1. And guys, that might be one of the reason why the cloud has a concept of subnet. Otherwise, there might be some small reasons why we need a subnet, just for management or management of firewall security. That's a different point. But one of the great reason why we need this concept of subnet and lab, because this is the one who will through which we can tell to the AWS that it means in this lab, any of the computer launch, you have to pick the resources, RAM, CPU, hard disk from this data center. This is one of the way to tell to the Amazon that what exactly we want and from where we would like to pick the resources from. Okay, so that is one of the reasons why they have this concept of subnet. And guys, when I click, the subnet created. That's all. So simple, guys. So finally, this subnet has been created for us. And if you click in the subnet, okay, click the subnet. So it is very clear. This subnet is come into this building, and this subnet, right, is taking the resources from 1A. Okay, and whenever I launch any computer in this lab, they will get the IP only from this range. Okay, and now if you go to EC2, last time there was error, but let me refresh this page. Let me go next and next. And if I go to my building called VPC, now in this building, you have one lab. And this lab will put your resource in 1A. And now, okay, guys, you can launch your computer or ACID instance the way you do. Okay, you can do it very quickly. Let me check review and launch very quickly. Let me launch just to show you one small thing. Okay, let me launch. And this might be guys first time in this training, right? We are launching our instance, or we are taking the RAM and CPU, okay, on this lab. And this lab we have created, and this lab we are launching in the VPC. And guys, I already explained you the meaning of VPC is VPC give you one isolated environment. Okay, means if you have two VPC or two different company, and one of the computer of this company want to connect one of this come to this company, they don't have a connectivity. They won't allow. There's some way. There's a different point, but there's called we have to manually allow. There's called peering, VPC peering, but they won't allow. Maybe some other benefit also get. Okay. So what you'll see here, this computer that I launch right now, okay, is if you guys see here, they get IP of this range. Okay, why? Because I launched this computer over here in this building. So I launched the computer here. And this lab internally launched one DSCP, and a DSCP will tell the DSCP, you have to give the IP, any of the IP from this range. So DSCP guys has given IP called 148. But whenever I launch second one, they will give a random different IP, but only from this range only. The 3 octet will be same. Okay, but you can't see that DSCP for you over here because everything is internally hidden by the AWS by the service called NAS or VPC. This is called the abstract hide all the thing for us. And second, if you see guys, this instance launch in a lab of VPC, so a network called VPC and subnet of this one. Or because this subnet is there in 1A. So finally, guys, it but of ways because subnet is in 1A, subnet is in 1A. So it but of ways your final instance is also 100% should launch in 1A data center. So somewhere you might see they might have written they are running this instance on 1A data center. So where it is. So this instance is running. And if you see here, they launch this instance in 1A data center. Because it's not like this, we have to tell the AWS to launch here. Okay. We tell AWS launch this computer in lab 1 because lab 1 is there in 1A easy or 1A data center. So finally, obviously, they launch here. Also, it means this instance, you are taking the RAM and CPU and other things from 1A data center. You can think in this way. So guys, this is one of the example, but lots of things is there, right? Till now, we have just created the VPC at the subnet and launched the instance and that VPC. Okay, but even though we launch the VPC here, so we launch the instance here, but if this instance don't have a internet connectivity, how we can use this? So for example, this instance has been launched. Okay, and if you try to find the IP of this instance, so they have this IP. Okay, but they don't have public IP. And without having the public IP from my laptop and from your laptop, you can't connect this guy. So first of all, why they don't have a public IP? Even though I can give the public IP, I won't able to connect. Okay. So, and point is guys, what is public IP? What is private IP? Even though if I get the public IP, I won't able to connect. So we have to do some kind of gateway or internet gateway or netting. So very lot of concept guys we have. So I launched the instance. That's okay. But this instance, if you want to do a connectivity, the way we always use in my default VPC, okay, for this at least one more class we need. So tomorrow guys, I will explain you the concept of internet gateway, netting, and lots of other concepts also. After understanding those concepts plus public private IP concepts, then you understand how we can have a fully connectivity. Okay, but understand one thing guys, launching the instance so simple, having this instance connectivity from a laptop is so simple. Till date we have done what we have done on the default VPC. This is provided by the AWS. But this VPC because we have created, so we have to do lots of configuration here. So my configuration is not yet complete. But again, I recommend guys, by chance if you miss my YouTube class of networking that we have shared to you, I highly recommend those guys who especially don't know about networking, go to that class. It will give you some more extra basic clarity of the networking concepts. So I just want to guys talk till now for today. This topic is obviously is not completed, but I think a lot of concepts or vocabulary you have got about the VPC, or maybe you get has some of the use case of the VPC. So that's all, guys, for today. Tomorrow we'll continue with this topic. I would like to conclude for the for, till here. Any questions if you have, guys, you can you can ask me. Okay. So how to connect to mobile phones? Piyush, there's a lot of way available in the market, a lot of apps available. Depend, guys, what is your final use cases? So Akash, say when you're teaching CID or defining IP, Akash, I suggest I told you already, just go through my that basic classes. Most of the concept I discussed already there. So for this today's class, whatever the basic need we had, I try to again explain, but some of the things you'll get from my that class. When we'll start machine learning, Pankaj, if you are the part of my Earth, we already learning the machine learning there, but for open batch, there is no plan for the machine learning. Yes, Avinash, yes, we can create more than one subnet in per AG. And this is one of the practical we are going to discuss tomorrow. Answer yes, per AG, you can create more than one lab or subnet. I use VPC is different and VPN is different. Yes, Prakhar, if you launch more than 256 computers in this lab, because they have a subnet, so netmask slash 24, it won't allow you. It won't allow you. While netmask, Prabhajit, I have explained in my networking classes. Go there. Okay, that is the reason we always uh, told you multiple times before attend the class. Whatever classes we have shared with you guys, go through it. Because obviously in my AWS classes, I can't discuss the very basics networking, right? It will waste the time of other students or other candidates. Can we launch default VPC many number of times? No, once it we don't require it. Logically, if you think default VPC is like a one VPC, one building. Why we need more than once? If you want, we can copy somehow. There's a different point, but we don't need this. But yeah, if you want to need more VPC, um, in that perspective, you might have some kind of customized requirement the way I use today. So I have my different customized requirement. I would like to put different rooms or different labs or some different range. So I have created manually here. Even though there's some program in the AWS to create this VPC automatically, one click they launch. But I'll show you that program. But that program doesn't give you the internal concepts. So I just want to show you every concept of the VPC, so that I'm doing with this process. What is actual purpose of the customer VPC? High level, I explain you Shruti today. The customized VPC. Okay, especially when I go for my elastic load balancer classes, they give you more clarity there. Why we need, but most of the time, guys, we need a customized VPC. Um, Mohammad Azmal, .basrc file always run when you log in with some account, and log rc run when you boot the system. Okay, but then Docker, I think you're talking about this concept with the Docker perspective. Docker guys, because never boot actually, so log rc file never run. They always log in, so base rc file run. So why? What I mean by this, maybe not you not might not understand today because we haven't talked Docker a lot. Okay. Can we put router in the switch place of switch? No, Chirag. Router won't work in the same network. One of the core of router is if you're two different IP network range, then only router help you. So yes, Vishal, we have a way to provide private IP static also. If you want, I'll show you. But we have a way to put it. VPN and VPC is a different concept, Subham. So VPC we have to create. VPN we have to do setup here to have a connectivity. So Amol normally switch is normally don't assign with the IP address. Depending which kind of switch it is. But if you have a real switch and that switch is called managed switch, so switch has the own IP for management. There's a different point. But typically, when I say switch, switch don't assign the IP or there's no IP we assign to switch normally. Okay. Srinivas, what you asked is the range. So can we connect through this range? I don't understand actually, Srinivas, what exactly you're talking about this range. Yes, Kalyani, VPC, creating VPC is free, guys. So if you create a VPC, guys, it won't come with any fee. It is a free. Even though it's free, it's not a free tier. It's almost if you don't have a free tier account also, VPC creation is free. It won't charge you. So I am trying to pick as much as QD here. So I see a lot of same question repeat hundreds of times. So I'm just scrolling. Akshay, Python class is already there in my IC Rise. So it is recorded and available for everyone. But yeah, guys, by chance today we have a Python class at 9:15. So again, we are resuming today the Python class. Yes, Abhijit, there's a lot of use cases for having more than one subnet. No. Technically, there is no so much use case for having a subnet per AG, more than one subnet per AG. But there's a lot of use case that multiple subnet you need in multiple AGs. Okay, so this is a setup normally we do because somebody asked me today, can we launch more than one subnet per AG? And my answer is yes, but there's no so much use case for this. One of the use cases may be to manage the traffic or to manage the security firewall in per subnet. That's one of the use case you can think of. How many labs or subnet we can create one PPC? As such, Gaurav, technically lot, but normally the good practice is we always launch. For example, if you go to North Virginia, they have a 6 AG. So normally we launch per AG one subnet. This is a normal pattern we use. But as such, theoretically, I don't think so. There might be some limit, but as such, but you can create as much as you want. Yes, Ishwar, I'll try. Even though we are not into the security class, if you go to AWS security, there we talk normally VPN or IPsec or other things in more detail. Okay, so this is just a AWS CSA class. So I might not talk much about VPN, but let's see how much we can touch here because tons of other topics also over there, right? So we can't take the topic that might not be so much a part of our current program. Let me see how much I can talk about VPN here. So, so guys, that's all for today. You get the high level idea, I believe, about the VPC, but we have lots of more discussion on the VPC that we will discuss tomorrow, guys. That's all for today, guys. See you tomorrow. Bye. Good and take care. See you.